there's something about my medical history which has been making me very nervous. I do have a medical condition, and the thought that my lifelong dream could come crashing down because of it really gets under my skin. It's not that rare, and it's called Before we go into my little issue, let's understand why this medical matters. It's my high-level health certificate to Go Pro, and if I can't obtain one, this is where the journey ends. And I'll have to change the theme of my channel to something a bit more banal. I can't even begin training for my next license, the CPL, until I've got this in the bag. On the day of the medical, I'll need to get myself down, or up, to one of the 4 approved aeromedical centres. The CAA's website says it can take up to 4 hours and will include medical history, eyesight, physical examination, ECG, lung function, haemoglobin blood test, and urine, amongst others. All being well, they can actually issue your medical certificate on the day, but it can take longer if they need to do any digging. My words, not theirs. That's basically valid for a year in my case, so it'll need renewal well before I get a job. But as you might know from previous videos, there's something about my medical history which has been making me very nervous. I do have a medical condition, and the thought that my lifelong dream could come crashing down because of it really gets under my skin. It's not that rare, and it's called benign essential tremor. Way back when I was a teenager, I noticed I had this kind of low-level shake. And when I went to the GP, he told me that it was this tremor thing, and that I probably inherited it from my grandfather, because I think it's usually genetic. I'd barely notice it unless I was tanked up with caffeine, hungover, or talking to someone I fancied, which was a fairly common thing at that age. In other words, it didn't bother me or affect my daily life in the slightest. Until I got more info on the medical. It turns out I have to, understandably, declare medical history and current conditions. From my point of view, it is mild. But it's not the examiner's job to accept my personal impression. Their job is to establish what it is, whether it's stable, whether it affects function, and whether it could indicate something more significant. Anyway, I was faced with a choice. Wait and hope, or ask the advice of someone who wouldn't just be guessing. Anyway, I made my choice and I emailed an aeromedical examiner. Quickly, he replied, the essential tremor will not in itself be an issue, although any neurology correspondence you have would be helpful in support of your medical, and you should make efforts to obtain these. I had a task. Get a neurologist to investigate, get it in writing, and bring it with me. Off I went. I looked for a doctor with chops. Experience, qualifications, specialism in the right fields, and, albeit privately, I got myself booked in. The man I booked was a professor of neurology at Leeds and specialised in movement disorders. He watched how my hands behaved at rest, and when stretched out, he checked my eyes, my reflexes, my balance, my movement, and then he referred me for some precautionary blood tests. Once the examination was over, I waited. And waited. Then, one late afternoon, I got an email, and I opened the attachment. I started scanning for the bits that really mattered to me. First, he wrote that the tremor's not having any impact on my daily life. And, here's the bit. I agree with the previous assessment that this gentleman has a benign essential tremor. It is not causing any impact in daily life, and we agreed that he does not require any treatment. I have explained that benign essential tremor can get very slowly worse over the years, but his natural history has been pretty static. For completeness, I would be grateful if you could arrange some blood tests. And they all came back normal. And then there was arguably one of the more important sentences in the whole letter. I am happy for this letter to be submitted to the Civil Aviation Authority to support his application for a commercial license, and for their medical team to take these facts into consideration. Now, don't misread me, that doesn't guarantee the result, I know that, but it does mean that I'm no longer walking into the medical with an unexplained tremor, a vague diagnosis from 25 years ago, and nothing to support what I'm saying. I can walk in with a consultant neurologist's assessment, normal examination findings, normal blood tests, and a clear, written explanation of what this is. And, just as importantly, what it isn't. So, has this proved that I'll pass my Class 1 medical? No. Only they can decide that. But has it changed how I feel about going into it? Absolutely. Because instead of waiting for a medical to uncover a problem, I've tried to uncover it first. And the evidence I now have is about as reassuring as I could have hoped for. The next step is to take all of this with me and actually undergo the Class 1 medical. Soon I'll have to hand this and my blood test results to an aeromedical examiner in the hope that it helps just a little bit. But not yet. For now, it goes in the folder, ready for the big day. But it still isn't a Class 1 medical. Only the examination itself can give me that. Before then, there is another part of this which I really need to confront. How much is this all actually going to cost? I need to stop talking in vague ranges and work out exactly how much my journey is going to cost me. Subscribe if you want to see whether the numbers make this plan look ambitious or unhinged.